Hello Internet, and how are you doing today? This is going to be the first of many series called Getting Better at StarCraft. And the name of this episode is, if you hadn't looked at the title, Getting to know your interface and your enemy. Now, the thing about it is, what I found very important in StarCraft is that these are the first essentials that you should immediately know off the bat. Like, I think this is very, if you're trying to really get better, these are the first few things that you should know without having to do anything else. Not worrying about APM, not worrying about army building skills and whatnot. But still, this is extensively important. You'll probably be losing a lot if you don't know this type of stuff. This is my screen right now and what I'm doing. Okay, so what do I mean by getting to know your interface? Now, you gotta know what button does what. I know this sounds very rudimentary, and I don't want to treat you like a child or anything, but this is something that I still have problems with today, where I don't know maybe what button to press, or I don't know what to do for a hot second. And hotkeys are one thing that do really tend to speed up the game. Now, you gotta know how to use the mini-map properly, like jumping around from place to place without always having to pan around with the arrow keys, or you gotta know how to just use all the little buttons and extra things that are part of certain troops and certain soldiers that'll help you win the battle or the game. Now, both of these subjects are very intertwined in this episode, so I'll keep going over each one at the same time. Now, getting to know your enemy is a different story. Now, you gotta know what race you're playing up against, and then you gotta have a build for that race. Now, I'm playing up against Terran right now, so out of the experience of the games that I've played, normally people who play Terran generally have an addiction to building a lot of Marines, including myself. Now, the one thing that you gotta try and be one step ahead of the guy you're playing against, because if you're not one step ahead, then he's gonna be a step ahead, and of course he's gonna step all over you. See what I did there? I'm not funny. Anyways, so you see that I use the mini-map a lot to try and jump around the place, see if anything new pops up. Even though that doesn't happen, I still tend to do that. And I'm normally pressing S rather than using the mouse to go over everything, or I'm making sure that I use A to get the Marines out and everything else. It sounds very rudimentary for somebody who's pretty good at StarCraft. I'm not that good. But still, it's just things that you have to know right off the bat. Now, one thing that I don't kind of want to talk about early is APM, which everybody seems like it's the most important thing of the day, and it kind of is. But really what's most important is your interface and your enemy. Well, your interface, enemy, and your army building skills. Now, the thing about it is that your enemy, you gotta really know who you're playing against. Both the matches that I'm about to show you in a row are going to be people I just played this morning. I just got up, played 2 games, and then I'm getting ready to show you. This one doesn't, you can obviously see by the time this one doesn't take very long, because you'll see why in a hot second. Now, I'm getting ready to go check out this guy, because I'm like, okay, he looks... Additional supply depots. I don't know if he's going all Marines or not, and I'm not sure what he's trying to do, so I want to see what I can do to counter his build before he runs over here and tries to bulldoze me, which that does happen pretty often. So I gotta see what he's doing and how he's doing it. So right now I'm trying to upgrade the command center to a orbital command so I can do scans. Now you gotta know what extra things building does, like reactors and tech labs and all the other extra stuff. Then you gotta know how to use things like stem pack and other things of that sort. And I just scanned him and I just saw like he's building a bunch of Marines. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what to do now. Rather than me building a lot of Marines, I'm just going to start making Marauders, because Marauders counter Marines. One thing that's really important in StarCraft is that you gotta know what counters what on any given day, because if you don't know what counters what, then you're in for a really bad day when you start to lose, because you don't know how to counter some things.
SCV ready.
Now, I will explain some of the counters during each battle, and I sent over an SCV. Well, I did not notice I sent over an SCV. But I will explain to you, like, each counter as the series go on. So, for people who are still really new to this game, they don't understand what's going on, I'll try and break it down to you. Now, the thing about it is, when knowing your enemy, you gotta know if they're going to do some type of cheap shot type stuff, because that does happen extremely often. Actually, unnecessarily often. Where to the point where some people will fly in with cloaked units or other things of that sort. This guy looked like he was building a lot of Marines, so rather than getting up my defenses and sitting there and waiting for him to attack, I wanted to attack early. Like, the thing about it is, my play style is I'd normally do best around the middle of the game, not really towards the end or the beginning, where I kind of like attacking people. But yet again, not with always the biggest and most giant armies, because I'm not very good at countering some things at times. Now, I'm researching a couple other things such as stem pack, shield, and concussive shells, rather than... I was using the engineering bay, but I don't seriously use that too often until it's later into the game. Now, I would point out one mistake, but this is for another episode, where this, you notice the guy's money count is much higher than mine. Like, he has over 1,000 some minerals, and I only have a couple hundred. So, actively spending is one very, very, very important thing in StarCraft. That will be for the next episode, but for this one right now, it's really more about having the most important type. Well, just really getting around and knowing the person you're playing against and knowing what they'll do and how they'll do. Even though you've never played against them before, you gotta make a lot of assumptions at times, and you gotta make a lot of guesses, and people don't like doing that type of stuff. But it's just, it's what you have to do to win.
Research.
So I'm sending over all my guys just to see, just to try and do a light probe attack to see if I can knock out his Marines or do whatever. I expected this match to go on much longer than it did, but it's what happens. I'm getting all my SCVs all together, and I'm using a lot of hotkeys. That's why there's not really a lot of manual button pressing, even though you can't see that. I'm like doing things like V, S, and then I have stem pack research, so it's T, so I'm almost always immediately press that on the field. You just gotta make sure that you gotta remember how to do all the really little things at a time. I scan out his base really fast first, and then I start attacking. He sends forward his Marines, I use stem pack. And then you see his Marines are getting chopped up into little bits, because I have Marauders, which counters Marines. And then he says GG, and that was game. So, that went very well. That was my first game. I'm just gonna do like the first or second game of the day that I play, even if I lose or not, just letting you know so I could show you if I do something wrong too, because I'm not a perfect person. So here's the next game. This one I was playing against Protoss, and I kind of want to run into I wanted to run into that on the first game, but I didn't, so I ran into that on the second game. Yay! So, when it comes down to knowing your enemy, you gotta know what to build. This is kind of more lenient towards army building, but still, it's very, very, very important. Such as certain units will do certain things, like this game you'll see me kind of excessively using Ghost a lot, and Ghosts, Ravens, and Banshees. Like, what I found very important is that when it comes down to it, is that I gotta know how to use... Like, you gotta know how to use your units, which is really going towards back to interface. Like, Ghost has the EMP, which drains shields. The only race that has shields is Protoss, so Ghosts are an extremely useful versus Terran and Zerg units, but towards Protoss, even just clipping the shields a little bit can do a heck of a lot more because their general health is fairly weak. And their units are very super powered, so I'm still not sure why they hadn't noticed their units are too powerful. So I sent out an SCV to go scout, just to check out to see what he has, because I saw that he was Protoss, but I'm trying to see what type of build he was doing early. Now, like I said, I wouldn't know, I'm just making a lot of immediate predictions and immediate assumptions. Like, a lot of things that you have to do in this game are very on the fly. And, you just gotta think about how to do each and every single move at the time. And you gotta plan out what you're going to do. So I head down to his base, and I'm just looking around, trying to see what he has. Build a couple of SCVs to run down some of the extra money that I was gaining. And then I noticed that he's sending 2 probes after my SCV. So, right then and there, that tells me that this guy gets a little distracted at times. So, I wouldn't say really distracted, but you notice that that probe is still following my SCV, and it would have quit a while ago, so he's still sending it with his own commands to go after my SCV. It's going a little close towards my base, and I didn't want that SCV going at my base, so I started I plotted out a course by right-clicking on the mini-map and then setting out a pre-laid path for my SCV, so I don't have to watch it every 32 seconds or so. So while he's going about moving around, I'm still just trying to spend money and build, and now I'm going to... And then I thought about, actually, I wanted to run back to his base to go check to see if he had anything else. Because I wanted to see what real style he was doing. I saw he was building a lot of probes, but I didn't see any units or anything building units. So, I go up to his base, and then I see gateways, forge, and a couple of other pylons, and I'm like, okay, this guy's probably going to go for stalkers. I just had a feel... This is the experience talking from all the games that I've played, but I just had a feeling that he was just going to be building a lot of those. Now, don't always assume that they're going to build the most powerful army, because a lot of the time they won't. Like, camping in this game is actually kind of bad at times because, well, it's ineffective. In my opinion. Sometimes it's effective. And if it works for you, then use it. I'm not blaming you for using it. And then so he's very defensive right now. I noticed he's built 2 photon cannons, and I have a feeling he was going for another fort. He was going for another gateway. So I knew he wasn't going to be expanding very fast anytime soon. But I was really starting to get a little bit edgy with this guy, knowing that if I leave him alone for too long, he's going to build an army that I'm going to have a hard time trying to beat. So I started getting my barracks and everything else prepared and trying to make sure that I'm ready to counter this guy. And I'm actually going to fast forward because nothing happens for a little while. Anyways, so I start building Marauders and Marines because I had a feeling he was going to build Stalkers and Zealots, so that's just the natural counter to them. Well, they're not complete counters, but they're pretty close to it. 3 Marines is equal up to 1 Zealot, and then I think it's like 2 Marauders is... Well, no, 3 Marines is equal to 1 Stalker. And then I think it's like 1 Marauder is 1 Zealot. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that they counter each other, so I'm going to try my best to build one. Now, the thing about it is I'm making Ghosts, too. And one thing... I'm going to slow down here, actually. You notice that on the panel right here, if you can see that, where you press Control and then a number. Now, this is getting back to knowing your interface. Where I put the Ghost in a separate slot because I wanted to use them without having to immediately look at them. Even though whenever I select all the units, they'd appear first, I still needed them immediately at the time. Like, such as getting Cloak for the Ghost, because I needed the EMP so I can weaken his troops as much as possible. Now, I was getting ready to go out there and do a probe attack to see what he does and how he does during battle, and I stupidly forgot to retract the thing, so my troops go like, hey, let's walk around it. Smartass. Anyways, so I start sending out these guys, and One thing that some people do forget is to continue building units. And then so I started building a contingent force. I noticed they get attacked by some zealot that was sitting out there. And that was a smart idea by that guy, by having a quick scout to see whether or not I was going to attack him or not. And right now he should have been getting prepared for an attack because he just saw what I was doing. So I continue moving out, and I'm still building contingent force back at the base. And I forgot to do all the common researches such as stim pack, shield, and other things of that sort. And I just started building a new base too. So I know this guy's defensive, and I know he's not going to have that much. I sent out my troops. I know they didn't have stim packs, so they're really less effective than I wanted to. I use EMP to knock out just a couple of other extra things, and I quote the ghost on the field. Now, all the extra little buttons that's there, like cloaking and other things of that sort, you want to use them as often as possible. Like, if they don't have any detectors, you want to use cloaking. And I'm not trying to say, oh, be a douchebag and try and run around with cloaked units and everything else, but you want to try and get... It's really about getting ahead of the person in front of you, and whether that's using on-field cloaking or trying to use all the extra little resources that your race gives you. I in particular use Terran. I'll do Protoss later, and maybe Zerg. I'm really bad with Zerg. But you gotta know what little things your unit does to give you that slight advantage on the battle, which can really turn the tide of the entire game if you know how to use those little advantages, which is really learning how to use your own interface. So, I'm gonna speed up again, because nothing happens. Yay! Now, some things about StarCraft is that ghosts are primarily effective more against Protoss. Reapers are kind of more effective against Zerg because they're fast and they're lightweight and they hit pretty well.
Upgrade complete.
So you gotta know what to build and when to build it and how to build it. Now, one thing that kind of perplexed me after a little while was Void Rays and Void Rays and Vikings. For my personal belief, I thought Vikings would dominate Void Rays because they're anti-air, and anti-air versus air just kind of made sense to me. Although Vikings do not counter Void Rays. It's either have a frick ton of Marines or a frick ton of Marines, and that'll kill off a Void Ray.
Additional supplies.
So you gotta know what, when, how to counter. And I noticed he was building Colossuses, as you saw back there. So I'm like, okay, Colossuses are tall, and Vikings actually shoot at Colossus because they're actually kind of tall. And I noticed that he had a cloaked unit over there, so I started building a couple of turrets and then some ravens so I can detect them on the field. Now the thing about ravens is that they have the turret, and they also have the seeker missile too. And the seeker missile to me is really important because I can knock out things such as cruisers and herp derp because I forgot to press A. Like, they have things such as seeker missiles and they have seeker missiles, turrets, and then the defensive little thing that shoots down things such as like missiles and photon cannon beams and other things of that sort. So to me, ravens are almost invaluable, and I really like using them almost all the time. And I noticed that he has a mothership, so I really start getting ready to use the ravens. And I keep putting like each one inside a controlled section, such as the ghosts are on 1, so if I need all of them to use an EMP, I hit 1, and then I hit E. And then if I need to use a whole army, like move the army as a whole, I hit 2. Like control 2 whenever you're selecting something, so you go about using your mouse and then go over it and then press control whatever. And then I'd hit 3 for the Raven, so I can do 3R, use all the seeker missiles at the same time. So he still has those little scouts there. I really should have put down scouts, but yet again, yeah, so I really should have been using some other scouts. And then I see his army. I'm not sure why I'm not on my own camera. So then I move my... I don't want to run straight into his army because I thought that'd be a little not right. Hitting it from the side I thought would be probably the best. And yeah, you got to think about like little on-field strategies. So I get ready to select my ghost, and he starts attacking. And then I just forget how to use my units for a hot second. And then I'm like, wait a second. Secret missiles on the mothership. And then I start hitting stem pack on all the Marines, which then start to cut apart some other things. I cloaked my Banshees on the field too, so they wouldn't be shot out immediately, and so they can focus on the cannon fodder units, such as the Marines and the Marauders. And just, I'm trying to figure out how this guy is building. I don't want to run straight into him yet, even though I could right now. I just didn't want to at the moment. I was getting ready to attack from the side. I saw his other base, so I go about my day just kind of mulling over it. I decloaked my Banshees to make sure that they didn't run out of energy, so in case there's another battle. I start moving my SCVs so they're more active at the moment. Just, you gotta know how to do each and every single little thing at a time.
Mineral field depleted.
And I was making sure that I was nice and very well supplied, so I was reloading on troops, like getting ready to reinforce the guys who were at the front. Making sure that everything is in their proper selection slots, such as Banshees were in 4 for me, and Ghosts were in 1, and Ravens were in 3.
Upgrade.
Even though I didn't really rebuild on Ravens, which I probably should have. It wasn't very necessary, but I normally like to have about 2 Ravens or so, just to be safe. It depends on the type of army that they build.
Nuclear missile ready.
And so, yeah, you see, I'm really trying to make sure that I kind of have a full push, even though this isn't always very necessary. I could have attacked them with that force and probably won, but it was just, I just decided not to. Now, don't always wait. Like, it's not always the best thing to wait. I may be waiting now, because I know I've won, but when somebody waits for way too long, giving them more than enough time to do something, then that's when it becomes a bad thing. So he goes over with a second attack, moving in with Void Rays, Colossus, and Stalkers. He sent out his Zealots too early, so they got just murdered, and leaving his Stalkers and everything else out in the open. So I continued to rebuild on new troops if anything was lost. I didn't notice those SCVs were not at work. And then I start building new bases and just continually expanding. Now, I once again try and use my Raven that got killed, so then I get ready to cloak all my Banshees. I get ready to... Anyways, I use Stem Pack... Oh yeah, I just did that. So I did use Stem Pack on all the Marines, and then I start sending everything in because I didn't want to wait for any longer. Now, what I mean by knowing your enemy, little things like this. You see all of the, you notice how there's like little pylons by the photon cannons, yeah. So the thing about it, he quit a while ago. He knew he lost. But the thing about it is that when it comes down to knowing your enemy, you know that Protoss can only build in the range of the pylon, Zerg can only build on creep, and Terran can build anywhere. So normally what you want to do is attack the pylons first so you can de-warp the photon cannons to make sure that they're not shooting at your stuff so they can run in all clear. So I'm still just doing my normal thing even though he had lost a while ago, but I was just making sure that he was good and gone. Even though he was already good and gone, I was just confirming that he was good and gone. It was really unnecessary, but I was just doing it. And also using a pointless nuke. But yeah, it's really important that you know what you're doing and know how to use your troops and just know how to use stuff in general. This guy's primary problem was that he probably didn't expand very well, maybe, or he just didn't build, or he didn't scout me enough to build the right army to counter what I had. And then that's how it really just turned out to be. Just, he didn't know what I had, so he didn't counter it, and that's what's really important about knowing your enemy. So, that finishes off episode 1 of Getting Better at StarCraft. Knowing your enemy and knowing your interface. You gotta figure out what buttons do what. And you gotta figure out how the guy who's around you playing. Now, this isn't a tutorial on what to do. this is just only a guide on how to get better. I'm not showing you every little last button that I press so you can beat me later. No, I'm showing you this is what you can do to get better. This is what I did to get better. Because earlier I had a 1 and 3 win ratio, so that's for every 1 win I lose about 3 times or so. So my rank turned out to be like 10 and 30. So that was well, that wasn't rank, but my win-loss ratio turned out to be 10 and 30. So that was pretty fun. And moving up from that, I'm now actually number 2. I'm thinking so this is just in Ohio or somewhere else, but still, I was pretty happy about that. I got 38 wins and 30 losses, and that's much better than what I initially had on going from every 1 win I'd get 3 losses. Now, it's kind of more along the lines of every 1 win I'd lose once, or every 2 wins I'd lose once. So, it's you really gotta know what you're doing in StarCraft. And the next episode we'll be going over army building and resources. Those are 2 pretty important ones too. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next episode next week. This is MrMacGun signing off, and see you, Internet.